Let's talk commentaries, because I made an offhanded comment a week or so ago in one of the lectures about, and I hope somebody's teaching you which commentaries to use, and I don't think that they probably are. So I wanted to give you the lay of the land according to me. This is just one person's perspective on this, but I wanted to kind of give you maybe some helps in selecting commentaries. The first thing that I'm going to say about commentaries is this: do not buy an entire series of commentaries, because they're expensive. They are also probably in the process of revising certain books. So if you have an entire series and then 2 or 3 or 4 of them are being revised each year, you're going to drop an additional $150 or so just to stay current, and that's not worth it. And once the revisions come out, it usually renders the original completely worthless most of the time. So buying an entire series is not going to be economical for you. I understand that some of you are pastoring in places where you are at a distance from a research library, which means you are going to want to build up your personal library. And I would encourage you to do what I'm doing, which is each time you begin a new sermon series on a book of the Bible, to begin to amass a pretty good library on, we are now teaching through James, so I'm putting together a library on James. Now, I'll also say this too. I know that the tendency will be, oh, well, if a series of commentaries is too expensive, maybe I should just get a good one volume. Yeah. Probably not, mainly because the one volume commentaries aren't as helpful. They're condensed. A lot of times they're written by one person, and it's rare that you want one person's thoughts on everything in the Bible. It's rare. And the reason why I say it's rare is because there is one series where the entire New Testament has been explored by one author. His name is N.T. Wright. This is called the For Everyone series. And N.T. Wright he's good. And he's good enough where you might want to see what he's saying. And also, this series is super practical, easily preachable, and also even you could give it to your congregants as devotional literature. It's broken up so that each section is maybe at most 4 pages. So you could read that each day or every other day as sort of devotional literature and go through the Bible. I'll also say this too. The Old Testament half of the For Everyone series was written by Fuller's own John Goldengay, which is awesome, because to put Goldengay next to N.T. Wright, who is a world-renowned New Testament scholar. I mean, some people really do not like N.T. Wright. Actually, he's kind of like, some conservative people really don't like N.T. Wright, and also some liberal people really don't like N.T. Wright. So he's got this kind of middle ground, which is actually pretty large. I'd say a good number of people at least respect the work that he does. So if you are going to buy one series, I would recommend the For Everyone series. It also has just been produced within the last 10 years or so, so they're not going to revise that anytime soon. The only other sort of larger series that I would recommend to you is the New Interpreter's Bible Commentary. The only reason why I own this in print is because N.T. Wright wrote the Romans commentary and Richard Hayes wrote the Galatians commentary. They're both studs, and I wanted it so I could flip through it. But the reason why I say you don't need it, listen to this. Thought it was going to thud a bit harder. The reason why I say you don't need to buy it is because you actually already have access to it. When you go to the Fuller Library, you click on databases, and then the drop-down menu shows up. You go to M, Ministry Matters, and then within that, you have access to the New Interpreter's Bible Commentary already on your computer. That's a good place for you to start in any exegetical paper that you're doing. It is pastoral in nature, but that's okay, because the people that are writing it are good, well accepted critical scholars. Okay, now, if you have an exegetical paper or a sermon series that you're trying to do, I'm going to just go down some information here. I don't know if you can see this huge stack of books that I've got here in front of you. We've already talked about the For Everyone series. I would recommend that to you. The place that I would actually start if I was doing something, especially if it's an exegetical paper, I would go beyond my ESV study Bible. I would go beyond my NIV study Bible, but I would go to the HarperCollins Study Bible or the New Oxford Annotated Bible. The reason why I'm reading these two is because they are sort of the, what would you say, like the standard condensed version of what you would get in a mainline denominational seminary. They're very ecumenical. They're very historical, critical in their approach. They're going to give you what might feel to you as a more liberal take on things, but you want to engage with that to see how different it might be from your more evangelical ESV, NIV sort of situation, to see what the discussions are that you should be exploring in an exegetical paper, most likely, okay? I will also say that this is some of the politics of Bible translations. So the NRSV is the standard sort of academic, critical version of the Bible. The ESV, the NIV, those are more evangelical translations. And you can tell even in not just the notes, but the way that certain texts are interpreted, there's a big difference between what the NRSV is doing and what the NIV is doing and what the ESV is doing. Kind of in that middle ground there in between those two, if those are the two poles, and I don't think they are. The the NRSV is not by any stretch a liberal translation. It's very good, actually. I use it for my daily readings. But you have the Common English Bible, which kind of takes up that middle ground. It's attempting to become an evangelical-ish, ecumenical-ish translation. It's good. You will note at times, both in the interpretation of the biblical text and in the notes, that liberties are taken and individual theologies show up. That's fine in the notes. I think that's also true of the actual translation of the text, though. I like it. It's great. And Fuller has had a lot of faculty that have served on the translation committee of the Common English Bible and have also written notes for the Common English Bible. So if you want a good starting place for where maybe some of your professors are coming from, the Common English Bible is a great place as well. I would supplement that with either the New Oxford Annotated or the HarperCollins Study Bible. Okay, now, I said what I said about not buying series of commentaries. But also, if you want to write a good exegetical paper, there's probably series of commentaries that you need to engage that I'm going to walk you through that will help you to get a broad understanding of your text. Now, because I am currently preaching through James, I'm going to focus most of my attention on the book of James and the things that I have been piecing together to complement my own personal library. Okay, so one of the first things that I bought was the Anchor Bible commentary on James. Think of the Anchor Bible commentary as sort of like along with your New Oxford or your HarperCollins, because this is the standard mainline critical, like this is the stuff from professors teaching at Yale, Harvard, Princeton, University of Chicago. Luke Timothy Johnson here wrote the letter of James edition, and he teaches at Emory, like just really good research institutions where their scholars are writing for the field. They're writing for the academics. They're not necessarily writing for pastors. There's freedom here because they can talk about whatever they want and hold whatever views that they want. Whereas in a series like the NIV application commentary series, which you can tell here if you're zoomed in, this is the Exodus version. written by Pete Enns, which is really good. It's actually good just for the introduction that he writes, because I think he does some really interesting things talking about interpretation. But I don't have the James edition because I didn't want it, because I've got other resources that will help me preach. The NIV application series is written for a different audience. I would say maybe not the stuff that you use in an exegetical paper, but something that you might use in a preaching series where your primary audience is more evangelical folks who just really want to connect the dots between this ancient text to their current modes of application. That's why it's called the NIV Application Commentary Series. Okay? So I've started out with Luke Timothy Johnson in the Anchor Bible series. There is an Old Testament version as well. It's blue. The New Testament is red. Get these. If you're writing an exegetical paper on Romans, Luke, Titus, if you're writing an exegetical paper on 1 Samuel, like, you're consulting the Anchor Bible because that is the standard historical, critical, scholarly take on whatever passage you're looking at, okay? So you're not buying the entire series, but you are looking at the Anchor Bible Commentary series. If you want to then move over to a more evangelical series that I would recommend to you, I would say, so for me, we're back in James, the New International Commentary on the New Testament. There's also an Old Testament version of this, the New International Commentary on the Old Testament, right? So this is more of good scholarship, again, not written for pastors, but written for the scholars and students of, I would say, like a Fuller Theological Seminary. Like, they're going to be a little bit more conservative than your Anchor Bible crowd, but they're also wanting to engage the discussions on the issues. And the authors do not feel any need whatsoever to skirt any of the findings that they have. Whereas, again, in the NIV application series, you're not going to get the whole story because the whole story is not allowed. There's just certain things that those authors can't talk about because their readership would freak out. So if you want the standard scholarship that might skew a little bit more to the conservative evangelical side, I would say this is a really good one. Whatever passage you're looking at Anchor Bible, you're looking at the New International Commentary on either the Old Testament or the New Testament. That's a good place for you to start. I would also recommend, again, I don't have the James version, but the New Testament library and the Old Testament library. Side note, all three of these series, they have editions for every book of the Old Testament and the New Testament. Some of them might be in revision, but if it hasn't been released yet, you're golden. So I would also check out the New Testament library and the Old Testament library. This one actually is on the book of John, and it's written by Marianne May Thompson, which is cool because she's a Fuller faculty, and this is a really celebrated series. So the fact that Fuller faculty is contributing to this is a feather in our cap, as we say, but also good for her. It's another good standard commentary that should be consulted. The one other one that I would say is maybe the Word Biblical Commentary series. They're good. Look at the copyright date on whatever you're looking at. For example, this one was written in the early 80s, I think. 88. So not super old. And this is Ralph Martin, another Fuller faculty member. So it's also good. I think the structure of that is kind of hard to follow because they do each passage according to, let me see here, form, structure, and setting. And then it goes into the comment, which is verse specific, and then it goes into the explanation. And sometimes I just find that that's a bit laborious. So I would be looking at these series as a start. Anchor Bible, New International Commentary on either the Old Testament or the New Testament, either the Old Testament library or the New Testament library, and then the Word Biblical Commentary series for my exegetical papers is what I would be looking for. Now, if you're preaching I think those are good places to start as well, and then just follow the footnotes. So if there's articles that are being written, you have access to them as a Fuller student. Again, you're going to the databases off of the Fuller library page, and usually you'd be clicking on Atlas Religion. It's either Atla or Atlas, I forget, but it's that one, and then you can type in the article, and 8 times out of 10, it will be available to you. Now, if it's a chapter of a book, that's a different story, but if it's just an article in a periodical, then you'll be able to access that. And also, then you can find the rabbit trails of books that are not really part of a series that are being quoted a lot. So, for example, in James, this one shows up. And it is part of a series, but I don't think anybody cares about that series. The only reason why this book is on my radar is because all of the commentators on James talk about Richard Bauckham and this book on James. So I followed the footnotes, and I am now reading this book, which is actually very, very good. There is one other series that I'm looking for. Hold on, I have one on my shelf here. If you're preaching, this one's great. The Interpretation series, it's a Bible commentary for teaching and preaching. Now, the difference between that and, say, the NIV application commentary is, think of it this way. If we're doing sort of stepping stones. Sorry, I've got thousands of books here. So I said that the New International Commentary on the Old Testament and the New Testament is more of an evangelical-ish critical take on things. So let that be the base. And then the NIV is extrapolating from that to make it even more accessible for a more conservative readership. Okay? Now, think about the interpretation in this way. You've got the Anchor Bible on the bottom level. That's the standard, and they're extrapolating from that to get to the preaching audience. So what you find here in the interpretation is a more mainline, ecumenical, maybe think about them as business professionals, like smart sort of crew that you're going to be preaching to. That commentary series is not going to be as safe as the NIV application commentary series, but it's going to be worth your time and consideration depending on, well, I would say just in general, but also depending on your context, what you could maybe get away with and what you couldn't, which is a different video entirely. There's one other thing that I wanted to say that now I'm blanking on, but we have laid a pretty good foundation. So remember, you have access to the New International Bible Commentary. I would read that. And then if I were just making my way through, I would be on board with the Anchor Bible series, the Old Testament Library, New Testament Library series, the New International Commentary series on the Old Testament or the New Testament. And then I would be looking at the also the Word Biblical Commentary, and then I would cap it off with an interpretation. If you're doing a research paper and those are the sources that you're using, your professor's going to love you because you're citing the right things, which makes you look smarter than you are. So depending on how you can assimilate all of the things that are happening here, you're going to be set up in a good spot. So those are some introductory thoughts on. Oh, this is what I was going to say. Let me check my battery real quick. Still alive, but it's blinking, so I'll be quick. Everything that I've shown you so far, except for Marianne May Thompson, every commentary that I've given you, they're all white men. So I would try, if I'm preaching especially, and at Fuller, if I'm writing an exegetical paper, I would also try to incorporate some voices on the margins. Feminist scholars, liberation theologians. I would be attempting to listen to people of color and seeing what they are thinking. Now, the bad thing is, for James especially, if that's the book that I'm looking at, there's just not a lot that's not Eurocentric white man commenting on James. I did find one. It's by Elsa Tamez. I'm not sure how to pronounce her last name. She's a feminist liberation theologian, and she's writing on James, and I'm sure that what she's going to observe is very different from the people that I'm reading, and that's a good thing. So if you can find some folks sort of outside of the fray of this standard scholarship to incorporate, that would be really good. There's a new series in the Old Testament. I think it's called the Woman Biblical Commentary. The Wisdom Biblical Commentary, but it's from a womanist perspective. Fabulous. Womanist biblical interpreters, mind you, would be black women who are commenting on the text. Whew, well worth your time. So if you can find people that are sort of outside of the dominant cultures in the academy, I would highly recommend that. Your congregation and your professors will love you. Okay, good luck. Thanks.